Electric cooperatives are very unique as far as those who are providers of electric power. There's some 930 electric cooperatives in 47 states across this country, so utility-wise, they're the only utilities really cover the entire country, all the way from Alaska and Hawaii up to the state of Maine. However, we cover a lot of territory. We have some 3/4 of all the land mass of the United States being served by electric cooperatives. We only have about 7 consumers per mile, or 7 members per mile. So from an infrastructure standpoint, there are very few people. And if you look at what they have to pay for as members and owners of those electric cooperatives, because keep in mind that as cooperatives, they are owned by the consumers themselves. About 40 million consumers actually own it. Well, those 40 million people have got to pay for 42% of the distribution infrastructure of this country. And that 7 people per mile is the ratio and how these costs are broken out. Bigger power companies, investor-owned utilities, for instance, have some 35 people per mile. And certainly on municipals, they have 47 people per mile. So as you can see, the burden is distributed much more heavily with regard to those living in rural America. That also breaks out as far as revenue is concerned. About $10,000 per mile is the revenue that comes from electric cooperatives, or 2 electric cooperatives. The investor-owned utilities about 6 times that, some $62,000 per mile, and municipals about $86,000 per mile. So as you can see, you got few people bearing a huge amount of burden, covering a huge part of the land mass of the United States in providing this service to people living in rural America. We are growing very rapidly. We are growing about twice as fast as the larger power companies. So you got a lot of folks that are moving in different parts of rural America, and of course that is part of our responsibility. In addition to that, though, we are also running out of power capacity. As far as the generation that was built during the 1980s, that's pretty much used up as far as we're concerned, and that's pretty much the end of it for us. And the generation that we will have to acquire through building or through other means is going to be the most expensive generation in the history of this country. We started over a year ago, started telling our members out there, the member owners of these cooperatives, that your rates are going to go up, and they're likely to go up substantially. Now, the impact that has as far as rural America is concerned, and particularly small business and small startup businesses. We have a lot of ethanol plants, biodiesel plants that are starting up in rural America. Obviously, is the case with any startup business, that is going to be something that they most likely had not planned on and could be an additional burden. Our responsibility as electric cooperatives, since these are owned by consumers, is really 2 things: employees, directors that are elected by the membership out there. One is to keep the lights on, obviously provide power to those members, and the second is do our best to try to hold down those rates as much as we can. So we've got a huge challenge in front of us in dealing with this particular difficulty. And the question is, over the next 10 to 15 years, is where we acquire the additional power that's going to be necessary. And given the fact we're growing faster than anyone in the electric utility industry, given the fact the Department of Energy has said between now and the year 2030 there will be a need for a 40% increase in the amount of power that this country needs to keep this economy going, then obviously we've got a huge challenge ahead of us, as does the entire electric utility industry. But for rural America, for small business, for farmers, people that are living in those areas, obviously we've got a huge challenge in trying to hold rates down instead of simply letting this thing skyrocket, but it is going to go up, and go up dramatically.